So the war is happening, and when they're setting up how to do this, there's this incident where Yudhishthira will sit with all the elders and he will always ask everyone's opinion. Like, so these kind of things get taken out when we talk about leadership qualities or a sense of togetherness. So he asked who should be the commander of chief of the army, the Pandava forces. And so he went around and he asked different people's opinion. Then, even though this is a good leadership, he asked all four of his brothers, and then he asked a few others. Finally it will be whatever Krishna says. And so you'll see that this is a recurring theme with the Pandava army. Yudhishthira will ask people their opinion, or they'll brainstorm different scenarios, and then it will be, but we'll do whatever Krishna says. And so from a leadership point of view, it's good for everyone to get their opinion in, but this here, devotion kind of overrides, and it is a little bit more dictatorship than team play, because whatever Krishna says. But Yudhishthira's kind of sets that mood. And then you'll find that all the Pandavas do the same thing. So when they're in discussion, and then even if Nakula is, offering his opinion on something that, let's use this strategy, let's put this person in the front, but whatever Krishna says. And then, so it becomes very much the theme of them. So they choose Drishtadyumna. I don't know if I did this before we wrote, as the commander-in-chief of the Pandava army, who is Draupadi's brother, and who is born out of fire, out of the fire, yajna, to kill specifically Dronacharya. So to kill the enemy, right? It's the purpose of his birth. And then on the Kaurava side, they choose Bhishma. He's the eldest. He's also the most proficient. And so there's not much discussion about that. Bhishma, of course, goes without saying, Bhishma is going to be the commander-in-chief. And I think this is the Drashtra's, and this is where we see that the Drashtra did have an influence, because it was the Drashtra that was like, obviously the commander-in-chief is going to be Bhishmacharya. Because given it, if you leave it to Duryodhana, I'm not sure he would have chosen Bhishmacharya. Because Bhishmacharya gives two conditions in taking up the commander-in-chief position. Condition number one is he will not hurt the 5 Pandavas. So they'll fight the war, he'll kill everyone else, but he will, never mind kill, he will not hurt the 5 Pandavas. And the second condition is he will not fight in the any army where Karna is there. And so, Duryodhana's love for Karna, chances are he would have just said, okay, fine, we don't need you, I'll take Karna. And then, there's many points while the war is taking place where Duryodhana actually says that to Bhishma. And so, if you make somebody your commander, and already they have this affection, where their rule is they're not going to kill the 5, your direct enemy, so to say. So from the outside, when we look at the armies, the Kauravas had, I think it was 11 akshonis, which is a unit of measuring in terms of the forces, and the Pandavas had 8. I think that's what the division was. And so it looks like the Kaurava has a stronger army. But when you look at each person in the each army, like you take somebody who's born for the purpose of killing their enemy versus somebody who says, they are dear to me, I will not kill them. And these are your 2 commanders in chief. And so sometimes numbers make a significant difference, but sometimes the quality makes so much more of a difference. And so then you see too this softness with Dronacharya, who's your second in charge after Bhishma. And so there were some words exchanged between Bhishmacharya and Karna. And so Karna ends up taking a vow that he will not fight until Bhishma dies. And this is actually an interesting vow for Karna to take, because Bhishma can't die except if he chooses to die. And so you're choosing to sit out of a significant chunk of the war. And I couldn't help but think, was this Karna's way of delaying the inevitable? Although, Bhishma was very unkind in the way that he spoke to Karna. And so that emotional reaction. This is another interesting thing. We pride ourselves in thinking we are logical people, but there's constantly these emotional reactions. And so Karna here, fierce warrior, worthy of being king, making such emotional decisions. And being, again, fierce warrior, can kill hundreds of men with a click of his finger, making such emotional decisions. And so interesting, when we have this whole thing of women are emotional. Not really, huh? I'm not saying women are not emotional. Of course they are, but this is Mahabharata. Like, this is as manly as you can get. Mr. Bean here with his, with his mace, going around killing hundreds of people each day. Karna with his armor and his bow and arrow and strutting around. Like, I don't think you can get more testosterone male kind of characters. And then they're making highly emotional decisions. And so interesting when we make that divide, and that it really has got nothing to do with gender emotionally, how we think, or rather not emotionally, how we think. We all have emotional thinking, and we can all rise above emotional thinking, but not very common that we rise above emotional thinking and think things through logically. Okay, so we've got this disparity in quality in terms of the armies. And so the night before the battle is being fought, Duryodhana sends this message to the Pandavas through the messenger. I think his name is Ulak or something like that. And it's interesting because Ulak arrives at the camp saying, please do not kill me. I'm here to deliver this message. And so already you kind of get the idea of this message is highly insulting or highly inappropriate, because even before he gives the message, he's begging that please forgive me. These are not my words. I am delivering a message. Do not kill me. And so the message starts with, to the effect of, Yudhishthira, you were a coward. You don't deserve to be the king. If you weren't a coward, you would have had this war 13 years ago, but you were hiding in the forest for 13 years. Today, suddenly you decided. I'm paraphrasing, but this is the essence of it. And so, I was the one who ruled while you were, vacationing in the forest kind of a thing. And so there's really no point in you fighting this battle, just go back to the forest. And then Beam, you're better off cooking. You were much better cook than you are a warrior. And don't mistake your spoon to be a weapon. It's not a weapon. Basically that 1 year you spent in Virat's kingdom cooking was the only worthwhile year of your life, because you actually did something you're good at. And then Arjuna, you've been teaching dance and plaiting hair for the last 1 year, and do you really think you're going to be able to win this battle? You've lost all your sense of warriorship, and so it goes on. So how it's like, even the little bit of respect you have for Duryodhana every now and then And then you read this message that he sends the night before the battle to the Pandavas, and like really digging his own grave, really ensuring that he meets such an ugly end. And so, of course, Bhim stands up straight away. He's about to bash this messenger up, and then Krishna is the one saying, he already said he's the messenger, and calm down. And then they all give their verbal replies. And this is also something very interesting, and I don't know if I've already mentioned this. So the messenger would have to take the message from the person, and it was a spoken message, and it was usually significantly long. Like when I'm telling you what I read, when I'm telling the message, I paraphrase and I shorten but these messengers had to repeat verbatim to be reliable messengers. And in the spirit in which it was said also, they have to relay the message. And so each one of them relayed, Yudhishthira relays, Bhim, of course, has a lot to say, recounting their vows and insults back to Duryodhana, etc., etc. This messenger has to remember who says what also. And that in itself, like, how powerful were their minds to have that? Because even, I'm telling you now, as I relay it to you guys, I don't remember the specifics of the message. Verbatim is out of the question. But Krishna's reply is what I wanted. The reason I bring up this whole scenario is Krishna's message back to Duryodhana is, Duryodhana, you the one that has been a coward because you have gained everything through trickery and deception. And you really haven't lived a good life. So now in these last few days that you have left, I hope you do live a good life. For you will see each of your brothers being killed, and you will be the last to be killed to ensure that you see them all be killed. And so, the war's pretty much started. I think last class I did actually start the war. I'm starting the war a few times. And Bhim has said the vows, gosh, at least 20 times in different conversations. He said it when it first happened, he would say it when they met Duryodhana in between, and while these negotiations are going on, he would repeat what his vow was. And there was constantly, even if the Pandavas and Kauravas weren't meeting face to face, there was constantly this messaging going back and forth. And so Bhim was constantly saying, I'm going to kill all your brothers, I'm going to kill all of the 100 Kauravas. But when it starts happening, and I think day one, Bhim already manages to kill something like 12 of the brothers. And then day two, so literally Bhim is doing this count of how many he kills every single day. And every time Duryodhana sees one of his brothers being killed, it's Krishna's words that he remembers. That you haven't lived a good life, and you will see and have to experience the pain of watching each of your brothers die. And it's interesting that he remembers Krishna's words and not Bhim's, even though Bhim's his nemesis, right? Bhim and Duryodhana are really the arch rivals, as much as Karna and Arjuna, they the arch rivals. So he doesn't remember Bhim as much. I mean, there's a lot of hate to Bhim because Bhim's the one killing. But he remembers the words of Krishna. And so this whole thing about power of speech, which I will focus on a little bit in today's class. And so Krishna says this, like, you haven't lived a good life, you have a little bit left. And because of all this that you have done, you're going to suffer. And know without a doubt that Arjuna will defeat your army. And he even says it in that many words because, oh, I forgot the very first line that Krishna says is, I could destroy your whole army with one thought. But I have chosen Arjuna to be the one that destroys your army. And so here we see that Krishna now no longer hides who he is. From when he showed Vishvarupa Darshan at the court, he now talks owning that he is an avatar. I mean, that very sentence that I can destroy your whole army with one thought, personally is a truth, but it's also declaring. And then interesting that when Duryodhana saw Vishvarupa Darshan, he still didn't get it. And when he hears these words from Krishna, he still doesn't get it. And so, the very definition of delusion is you don't know you're deluded. And Duryodhana is so deluded. Like at this point, he really thinks he can win the war, even though everyone's told him. Bhishmadeva's told him, the great rishis of Vedavyasa has told him, Narad Muni has told him. Like these are not ordinary rishis. His own mother has told him. Krishna has told him after seeing the Vishvarupa Darshan, he really isn't getting it. He's so steeped in delusion. And then I remember when I had taken the Mahabharata, previously somebody asked a question like, should we just listen when other people tell us something? Isn't it ambition and like thinking out of the box? And so like, somebody, the first person who, I think it was the Wright brothers, when they tried to fly, everyone told them, you crazy man, is not meant to fly, we're meant to stay on the earth. So don't bother. But they bothered. And today, we have air traffic problems because there's so many flights and pollution because there's so many flights. But so should they have listened when everybody said don't bother? So Duryodhana is also not listening. Everyone's telling him don't bother and he's not listening. Like which one's ambition and living your dream versus which one's delusion? Like how do we get away from I am deluded? And it's especially tricky because as I said, the very definition of delusion is I don't know that I am so clouded in my thinking. And so, both are true. We need not listen to everybody's opinion. And what's being done over the years we don't necessarily have to continue in that vein. So how will I know if I'm being, living my truth and following my goals, or if I'm deluded? I think a good way to check is, am I willing to hurt other people to get what I want? Am I willing to do what I know to be wrong to get what I like? And so here, Duryodhana is fighting for essentially money, kingdom, wealth. And so desire for wealth, it's a little bit more subtle. It's desire, it's jealousy to have what specifically Yudhishthira has, or what somebody else has. So even that, like, what is that? When the desire is that I should be as good, I should be better than. If you have it, I want it. But what is it that other people have? More often than not, wealth, which then, or sometimes it's attention. fame, popularity. And then sometimes it's a particular person. If you friends with somebody, or if you close to, then the other person wants what you have, or you want what that person has, right? So it's that. But essentially here, this war is being fought for wealth. Now, all of us desire wealth. Every single one of us need wealth to survive, need wealth to so many of the things we desire. And so the desire for wealth is desire itself, because I can't get pretty much, well, I can get things without money, but a lot of the things, not people or experiences, but things usually require money. So how far am I willing to go to fulfill this desire? How many rules am I willing to break? How many people am I willing to step on? How many people am I willing to hurt? How many people am I willing to, what's the word? Even have, in this case, killed. The minute we're willing to do that, the desire's got an element of delusion. You know, sometimes people are so rule-abiding or law-abiding. If the traffic speed limit is 60, they won't even go 61. There are certain personalities. If you're not around to cross here, they just won't cross there. And then of course there's others who happily go 70 to 60 and walk across the street anywhere, anytime. But there's certain, like, how much am I willing to break? Even if the speed limit is 60, maybe I'm happy to go up to 65, but after that, no. And it, you know, the speed limit's there to keep everyone safe, including myself. So tame it down a bit. And then there's those who are willing to go way more, all the way up to 100 potentially. And that's why you have speed breakers pretty much in every road now, because people think the speed limit is a suggestion, not a requirement. So how much am I willing to break the guidelines that we have for what is good for us? And if I'm willing to break them, then that desire is really strong. And the stronger that desire is, there's going to be a strong element of delusion. And even we have to have presence of mind to recognize this. Like to talk about Arjuna, Duryodhana's delusion, it's so easy for us. And then for us, how much am I willing? I have to have the presence of mind to even acknowledge that I'm willing to do certain things, which isn't very graceful, may definitely not kind. I was spending time with different families over these last 2 months, and you know, one parent was scolding a teenage kid who was being a little bit teenagerish. So the parent said, "Was that necessary to say? Was it kind?" And then it became this ongoing thing. Whatever the mother said after that, the child would reply with, "Was that necessary? Was it kind?" True to teenage. It's like even something like that. When we speaking to somebody else, do we check it? Why? Because desire. And what's the desire? Sometimes I'm in a rush. To go where? Nowhere specific. Right? Like when we land in Hong Kong and we're all walking from the plane to immigration. Why are we in such a rush? But we are. I remember someone told me once, They won't even go to the bathroom because then the queue gets longer. Because many people won't go on the flight, and then a lot of people will stop on the way too. But no, the queue will get too long. Like, really? And then we're waiting for the bags for as long as you have to wait for the bags. Or it's a whole 2 minutes later that you reach wherever you have to reach. And where are you going? Dinner. Or meet a friend. Or not just going home to sleep. But we're in such a rush. And because we're in such a rush, we're not mindful of what we say. So, how much am I willing to compromise on being the person I want to be? I think is a nice judge of how to do it here. So, the Duryodhana, really thinking he can win, sending this ridiculous message. And then I know I started the war last time, but there's this really nice bit, which I don't think I mentioned. Everyone's ready to the morning off, the sun is shining and the armies are already arranged. And Yudhishthira takes up all his armor and starts walking bare feet across the battlefield. And being Arjuna, Nakula, Sahadev, and Krishna, 5 of them. So 6 all together. Yudhishthira starts walking without his armor, without his weapons. The other 5 follow him without their armor and without their weapons. And as they're walking, each one makes a comment. So Bhim is the first to say, "What are you doing, Yudhishthira? You're making yourself vulnerable. This is a war. Why are you going without your armor and you taking us with you? Have you forgotten that we have to, kill all these people?" And Yudhishthira silence. And then Arjuna says next something. Nakula says something. Each one basically saying like, "I hope you haven't forgotten that we've come here to fight today." The Kaurava army also around the whispers, Duryodhana in particular thinks his message worked. And, Yudhishthira is coming to beg Bhishmacharya to not fight in this war and whatever he's thinking. But Yudhishthira's been drunk quiet the whole time. And finally it's Krishna that speaks after everyone speaks, saying, Yudhishthira is going to take the blessings of Krishna, Drona, and Shaila. I think Kripa is also Guru. And then Krishna only explains that Kshatriya Dharma, when you're about to fight with your elders, you cannot beat them without their permission. It's so incredible. And so, he walks straight towards Bhishmacharya first, who's the eldest in the family. He bows down with tears in his eyes and he says, "Give me your blessings to be victorious." And Bhishma's words, "Victory is already yours, for you have Krishna with you, and Krishna always has Dharma with him." But this sentence about, and specifically he goes to Bhishma first. Of course, Bhishma's the eldest, and so you would go to him first, but also Bhishma had siddhis that he had developed. So Bhishma never spoke a lie. And Bhishma never went back on his word. Why was Bhishma fighting in the Kaurava side, even though he loved Krishna and the Pandavas so much? Because he had given his word to his stepmother's father that he would not marry, he would not have children, and he would always stay true to the throne of. Right at that point, Dhritarashtra is on the throne. And Duryodhana has now been put on the throne. And so even though Duryodhana is in the wrong, he's keeping his word. Now, when people live lives with such consistency and with such absolute adherence to a particular value, they get a siddhi. And in this case, the siddhi is their words come true. Because they've never spoken a lie, because their word has never been broken by them. Now, when they say something about the future, it will come true. And Yudhishthira knows this. And so he doesn't say, bless me. Bless me to be victorious. And Bhishma says, victory is already yours, which means it's going to come true. I mean, of course, we already know it's going to come true because Krishna has said it, Indra has said it, Shiva has said it, Hanumanji has said it, like a lot of people have said it, so it's going to come true. But even just Yudhishthira's presence of mind that before the battle to do something like that. He then goes to Dronacharya, Kripacharya, and Shaila, who is the paternal uncle of Nakula and Sahadev, who got tricked to being under. And he'll ask each one for their blessings. And the conversation is actually very heartwarming. And each, when he bows down to Bhishmacharya, the pride in Bhishmacharya's heart, that this is he's meant to be the king. He's got the qualities and the virtues to be king because he doesn't act impulsively. He doesn't make emotional decisions. He has plenty emotions, but he doesn't make emotional decisions. And that complete adherence to what he believes to be right. And even that understanding of what is right. Then they go back. But another point that was beautiful in this is Yudhishthira takes out his armor and puts down his weapons and starts walking barefoot across the battlefield. The other four brothers don't like the idea, but they follow. That complete unity and that complete trust in Yudhishthira. And even if Yudhishthira was making himself vulnerable, he won't go on. Like they went with him. And then they're blind as though following of him proves to be worthwhile because Krishna gives the answer of what's he doing. And so that's like, yes, in some ways they didn't know what he was doing and they followed him blindly. But it's also, this is what that word faith means. You know this person is somebody who would have thought things through, who is noble, who has everyone's welfare at heart, and will do the right thing. And so I'm not seeing what it is that's right and why he's doing it, but follow. But that's exactly what faith is. And then it proves to be worthwhile. And so faith increases. I followed, and then I see that he was doing something beautiful. Good, I followed. And so then faith in Yudhishthira increases. Okay, day one, the formation and the fighting. And so, I'm not going to do a lot of what the fighting is because I'm going to read to you all one para. Of what kind of things is there, and it's there's so much details in who fought who and who how to fight who. So just this one para, right? Bhishma advanced towards the enemy ranks and he was met by Arjuna, meaning Arjuna helped him. Arrows flew faster than raindrops. Satyaki encountered Kritak Dharma. Abhimanyu met Braharbala, the king of Kaushalya. Braharbala cut the banner of Abhimanyu with a sharp arrow. Abhimanyu was furious. The two warriors were equally mad. Bhishma met Duryodhana, Bhima met Duryodhana, they rained arrows on each other. Dushashan met Nakula in a single combat. Durmukha, the brother of Duryodhana, accosted Sahadev. Shalya and Yudhishthira had a fight. Drishtadyumnu accosted Acharya Drona. At the end of the afternoon, the fights with the Pandava army would lost many soldiers. So I'm not going to tell you all those details. But there's pages and pages of that kind of detail of who fought with who. And sometimes it went on for hours. So noteworthy thing that happened in day one of the battlefield is the Bhagavad Gita, which I think I've already covered. If not, would you go to the YouTube, Chinmaya clicks, please get Bhagavad Gita. The second noteworthy thing of the first day of the battle is Abhimanyu is incredible. So there's only two people on the Pandava side who make any significant contribution on day one. The first is Bhim. Bhim was like a tiger that had been caged, who was now finally unleashed, and he was in his elements. Like I said, he killed 12 of the Kauravas in day one itself. And the second was Abhimanyu. If you read, I wish there was more on Abhimanyu, because he just seems so dynamic. He seems to have gotten the best of Krishna and Arjuna. Like Krishna's already so amazing, Arjuna's already so amazing, and then he seems to have gotten the best of them, because hey, he's 16, huh? Like he's making a dent in the Kaurava army, and he's 16. And he's fighting really experienced warriors, and some of them run away, and he has quite a few victories. But unfortunately, day one of the battle, the true hero of day one of the battle is Bhishma. Bhishma, true to everything that is said about him, is such an incredible warrior. He defeats a significant amount of the Pandava army. Now, Bhishma had clearly said he won't hurt the 5 Pandavas, but he can destroy hundreds of soldiers in a matter of minutes. Like hundreds, and so, from 18 Akshanis, maybe they died to 7 or maybe even 6, because Bhishma just wiped them out. Akshanis are thousands and thousands of people, huh? And Bhishma was able to just, like literally the term used is rained arrows. And and so by the end of day one, Yudhishthira is so disheartened. He goes up to Krishna and said, maybe we shouldn't fight this war, because really everyone's just dying in front of my eyes. And, nobody's like, pretty much he looks at Arjuna a little bit disappointed. And then Krishna totally agrees and looks at Arjuna and says, you were useless. Well, maybe not that exact words, but that's sentiment. It's like, what were you doing the whole day? How did you not stop Bhishma from killing so many people? And none of your promise we could see on the battlefield. And then this is, we know that Yudhishthira has a soft spot for Bhima. There's this great affection. And Yudhishthira says the only person that was actually fought well today was Bhima. My dear Bhima, to be specific. And he doesn't mention Abhimanyu, but Abhimanyu on this first day. And so then, Krishna tells Yudhishthira, it's day one, don't get so disheartened. Tomorrow is another day, we'll do better. And so they did. Day 2 was Pandava's victory. Also, day 1, Duryodhana was like, yeah, we're going to win this war, by tomorrow it will be over. We've got this whole sense of delusion again. And at the end of day 2, the Pandavas had done really well, and it was the Kaurava army that was thinking, wait a minute. And so who were our heroes in day 2? So Arjuna did step up, and he was defending the Pandava army from Bhishmacharya. So many didn't get hurt. But I think the true hero of day 2 was Bhim's son Gatakoch. And so you'll find that their sons are the ones that have, even Arjuna's son by Hidambi. Do you remember Hidambi, one of his wives that he had when he went on tour for that 1 year? Remember he had to go in exile because he walked into the room and then he married a whole lot of women. So Hidambi's had a son with Arjuna, and even this son, Ulaka, I think his name is, or something, again, like, amazing. Killed at the end of the day also, but not in day 2. He comes, I think, day 3, day 4. So even day 2, Abhimanyu is doing amazing. Everybody on the Kaurava side is thinking we totally underestimated Abhimanyu. Day 1, Virat's son, the one that Arjuna rode with when he was still Dalika, fights, very, very brave, but unfortunately dies in day 1 itself. And so lots of description about how he had improved as a warrior, how he had done so well, how he had blossomed, and then how upset father was seeing him die. And so a lot of the Mahabharata is very genuine, real emotions that you see going on in a war to really bring home how horrendous a war is. But day 2 is looking like the Pandavas have been able to make headway. And then day 3 comes along. So I'm not telling you how many people have died, but every single day a significant amount of people die. On both sides, and none of the big names just yet. But then, like I said, there's so many kings, I don't think I've said, there's so many kings here that have come on both sides that we don't know the backstories to, and their names come out. But we just know that they're great warriors. Not exactly how they related or what it is that they are doing. So day 3, Arjuna is fighting with Bhishmacharya. Now this incident happens a few times. Throughout the Mahabharata war, I think it happens at 3 different occasions. Arjuna really didn't want to kill Bhishmacharya. Didn't want to even be fighting with Bhishmacharya. And for those of you who remember chapter 1 of the Bhagavad Gita, his exact words are, these are people I would adore and worship with flowers rather than throw arrows. And so Arjuna's throwing arrows, or shooting, I should say, rather, arrows at Bhishma, but they kind of like, yeah, they like, literally, Krishna accuses him of throwing flowers, not throwing arrows, or shooting arrows rather, because they just don't have that that oomph that Arjuna's arrows have. And so Krishna gets really angry, turns around, and Krishna, throughout the Mahabharata so far, throughout the Bhagavatam, Krishna's face has a smile. Krishna smiling, Krishna smiling, Krishna smiling, Krishna smiling. Like the huge, even when you read through the Mahabharata till this point, Krishna smiling. Suddenly, day 3, Krishna's not smiling. He is furious. He looks at Arjuna and says, if you're not going to do it, I'm going to do it. I promised Draupadi that she will see her get her revenge. I promise Yudhishthira he will sit on the throne. I promise. And Krishna goes through all these things that he has promised. And then he's looking at Arjuna saying, and you were supposed to help do it. And I said I wouldn't take up weapons because I trusted that you would be able to do it. And if this is how you're going to fight, you're not doing, like, you're wasting my time. And I don't have time to waste. And so he jumps down and literally, this is very cool. How do you know a person's an avatar? When they put their hand up like this and a chakra appears. If they're not doing that, they're not an avatar. That's too cool. They could just command their weapon. And it's just like we play this game with the Mahabharata kids because it literally said that their vahanas would be sitting like this every single moment to spring into action the minute they need it. Right? So Mushika for Ganesh, Nandi for Shiva, the tiger for Devi. Like they were always waiting. And you'll see this in even Hanumanji. Like waiting, like literally follows Ramchandraji with his eyes, totally focused at it, because they have to spring up into action whenever that person needs. And yeah, we can see it also like when you see people doing seva for Guruji, for Swamiji, like Swamiji is doing something and you can foresee he's going to need a pen and then they grab it and it's so Swamiji, and then the pen's already there ready for him to just take. And so Guruji, in fact, here in Hong Kong in his last trip, he had said that because we were all around and somebody said, Guruji, can you sign our book? And the pen was ready and the table was ready. And he said, this is how Bhagwan's vahanas, they're all ready, they're waiting. And so the weapons are considered to be deities. They're considered to be sentient. The chakra is not an intangible object. Vishnu's chakra is a tangible thing. And so it's like a servant that's waiting to serve their master, in this case, Vishnu. And so the chakra is there. Krishna just puts up his finger and the chakra is there. And this is one of the most, if you Google Mahabharata on images, the first picture will be the conch, and this is the second picture. This is the epic Mahabharata picture, because it's the only time Krishna holds a weapon. Doesn't use the weapon, he just holds it. And so usually in this like a half-step motion, and Arjuna jumps down quick as Krishna jumps down. Arjuna's jumped down from the chariot. They're standing on the battlefield. Krishna's in this like half one leg forward, ready to charge, and Arjuna is holding his leg, the one that has to now be lifted, and weeping. You can't do this. And it's not, please don't. What he says is, you can't. You can't go back on your word, and you can't do this to me. Because of me, if you break this word, you can't. And so very genuine remorse and totally owning that you're right, I wasn't putting my all into it, and I will, I promise, but please, you don't. And then Krishna's a little bit okay. They get back onto the chariot and he'll always deliver. And he would always then fight the way, that's what we praise when we say Arjuna was an amazing warrior to that scale. But so like I said, this happens about 3 times in the Mahabharata. And each time he's standing there as Vishnu. He's not standing there like another soldier on the battle. He's standing there as Vishnu. Like the chakra appears in his hand. Imagine Duryodhana's delusion. Like how many people can do that? He still can't see it. And every time it happens, Bhishma puts down his weapons and says, there's only 2 people that can kill me, Arjuna and Krishna. And I would prefer it to be Krishna. So ready. Krishna, you throw that chakra at me and I will choose this moment to be my last. And his face would light up. Like he'd be so happy that, you know, what better way to die than by the Lord. Anyways, he's going to die. Because for this war to end, he has to die. So he really wanted it to be Krishna's chakra that takes him. But that's it, it doesn't happen. Each time Arjuna is able to convince him. And you know, this is so special. This incident happens on day 3 itself. And Krishna's words are, I don't have time to waste. Like people are dying here. I don't have time to waste. But what's really beautiful, I feel, about this incident is we already heard Krishna say in his message to Duryodhana, I can destroy this whole army with one thought. But I'm giving that victory or that glory to Arjuna. Arjuna is the chosen instrument. And when Arjuna's not being a good instrument, Krishna will just do it himself. This really so important for us to remember this. Like literally, if you think of a cook, like being pick up spoon, pick up knife, pick up ladle, stir the pot, turn the gas out, turn this. Those are the tools. We pick it up, we use it, we put it down. And we'll do the same. If I pick up the spoon and it's too small, too big, it's not doing quite a bit with what I want it to do, put it down. Change it. More so with a knife, right? If the knife's not cutting well, change it. And it's interesting, a lot of houses will have some 5, 6 knives, but only that one gets really used well. And you know, that one gets washed and used, even those others 5 Vichana knives are just sitting there. Why don't they get used? It's not a good instrument. So every now and then, the Lord will pick us up to do his work. And if we're not doing well, please note, he'll do it himself. Yeah. So often we'll think, I did, or I am needed to do. No, he can just pick up another instrument. Or in this case, he'll do it himself. In this case, other than Arjuna, there wasn't another fit instrument. So he'll just do it himself. Yeah. And so for us in that, when we're doing seva, and seva doesn't mean you're in the ashram doing something, just anywhere, everywhere, whenever we're helping somebody else out, whether it's somebody just had a baby and we are going to cook a meal for them, or helping somebody pick up the kids on the way for school, and whatever it is that we're doing to help anyone else out. And then of course with our seva that we dedicate to our sadhana, that we allocate that this is going to be our seva to constantly recognize that I'm only being given this because he's letting me do it, because he can do it himself. And secondly, if I don't do it well, I won't get other opportunities. Right? Other equipments are there that will be used, can be used. But also that, am I willing? This is such a fundamental question in our spiritual journey. Am I willing? So going back to the very beginning and the Duryodhana's delusion, am I willing to see my delusion? Even though delusion is I can't see it, am I willing to see it? No. Yudhishthira's adherence to do what is right. Am I willing to be that loyal and that committed to doing a particular value, particular living up to something I myself deem to be important? Am I willing, when I'm given opportunities to do it 100%? And we're given these opportunities, and they benefit us. Arjuna is known today because he was given that. Fulfillment of his life that he had forethought. I didn't mention this, but day 1, day 2, day 3. Day 1, when war is starting, Bhishma, as commander-chief of the Kaurava army, when he does his, what do you call it, your pep talk to the troops before going out at night, Bhishma's opening line to the army is, "Today the doors of heaven have opened." For the glory of a Kshatriya is not to die in bed in his sleep. The glory of a Kshatriya is not to die of illness. The glory of Kshatriya is to die in battle. So get ready for victory or death. And this incredible sense of willing that as a Kshatriya, this is my duty and I'm willing. I have that complete mindset. And even that Kshatriya mindset, you see how it gives them so much strength to be able to fight the battle, or it can be so incredibly, you lose the very ground that you're standing on. And so the night before, when, day 1, was it day 1? Yeah, no, before, when, before the war, maybe a few days before the war, when Yudhishthira has a doubt, should we fight? And, we'll be killing Bhishmacharya and Dronacharya. At that point, Arjuna says to Yudhishthira that this is a war and they have made their choice from which side they fight to. And for a Kshatriya, you do not see family and foe, you see friend and foe as battle. And so if they have made their choice, we have to fight them. This is Arjuna telling Yudhishthira. And yet, every time Arjuna has to fight Bhishma, he doesn't give it his 100%. It's easy to say, see him as foe, but when it came to actually fighting with him, he struggled. And this again, we make emotional decisions. We may speak very practically and wisely, because it was Arjuna giving Yudhishthira that instruction. But when it came time to acting, he did so badly that Krishna had to jump down from the chariot and take the chakra in his hand. And then only Arjuna would be like, okay. I'll fight properly. So are we willing? Are we willing to give it our 100% when opportunity to serve comes? Are we willing to do it with efficiency and that presence of mind to know that it's such a privilege to serve? It really is such a privilege because it means he's holding me in his hand, using me as his instrument. And if he's using me as his instrument, if he's holding me in his hand, I'm going to be the best I possibly can be. Who else would bring that out except for him? And so such a privilege to be able to serve. And so that picture of the Mahabharata where Krishna's got the chakra in his hand, ready to charge towards Bhishma, is this constant reminder to us. He can do just fine without any of us there. Okay, we'll pause here. Any questions?
So, because of the Duryodhana, so many people died.
Because of Duryodhana, so many people died. Yes. Even Draupadi wanted revenge. Which was actually Yudhishthira's, Krishna's argument. If they had fought that day itself, wouldn't have been such a big battle. The day they disturbed her, fight there and then. Kill them there and then. Didn't have to be a big blown full-on war. But it's in hindsight, it's easy to say. So why did Yudhishthira wait? Because we shouldn't make emotional decisions. Any decision made out of anger is a sin. All these people from Mahabharata point of view, remember Mahabharata is very fatalistic, meaning destiny. It's very much the line of thinking of things are predetermined. All these people were meant to die.
She pays a very high price.
Who pays a very high price? Draupadi, they all pay high prices. All of us pay high prices. We just don't realize that's we're choosing to pay that price sometimes when we're making those decisions. When we speak to somebody with anger, spite, condescending, we're choosing the outcome that comes to us. And the relationship failing, loneliness from that. And that when it comes, we don't realize that's the consequence. And we think, why does this have to happen to me? But we constantly bring high prices. Definitely not ideal. Definitely not ideal to have a war.
And Bhishma is choosing to fight the war. So he can choose who to kill or not to kill.
Yeah.
He should just listen to what Duryodhana said.
When Bhishma has to fight the war, he chose who he'll kill and who he won't kill.
Why not just listen to Duryodhana?
Because he is the commander of the chief. He's the commander of the army, so actually everyone has to listen to him. Duryodhana is not the commander of the army.
But not for this. It's fine.
Bhishma is not fighting for victory, correct? Bhishma is fighting as dharma. But there is that incident in day 3. What happens is Duryodhana gets really upset and says, Bhishma, you're not fighting so well. And, you're too soft and you're letting the Pandavas win. And I should rather have got Karna to be the commander-in-chief than you. So Duryodhana does this a few times. And so Bhishma says, okay, I'll go fight. And that's when he's running havoc. And that's when Arjuna is not fighting back with full vigor, and that's when Krishna. So every now and then Bhishma does try and appease Duryodhana. This is the thing. Bhishma did love Duryodhana because that's also his grandkid. We'll conclude. We'll continue next week. We reach day 3. 18.
Oh, that's it.
The war lasted 18 days. Correct, that is it.
Less than 20 survived.
18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, and the war lasted 18 days. Sarve bhavantu sakhinah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukhabhat bhavet, asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Namaha. Hari